5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Black Agenda Podcast Live. As always, I'm your co-host, Devin Dito, and we have here with me my co-host, Adrian Guest, and we're excited to bring you all of the news from this past week, covering the debates, some news with the coronavirus and everything. So, Adrian, we got a good show on tap here, and we're going to start out, of course, with the biggest news from this week, which is we had the last and final presidential debate that happened between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. And so it was, more normal this time. There wasn't a bunch of shouting and it was some name calling still, not as much interruption thanks to the fact that they could now, mute their mics and stuff. So that was definitely better. There was more substance to it. I don't know if it changed anybody's minds, but, Adrian, I did watch this one. I didn't turn the channel or anything like that. Like I say, it was definitely normal. Trump was on good behavior this time, being nice to the moderator. So it was definitely refreshing to at least see that he got the message that what he did in the first debate didn't work. But, there were some moments that came out of this debate, but I don't know if it'll change anybody's minds.
Well, I don't think anybody's minds will be changed for this upcoming election, Devin. I think everyone is locked and loaded, ready to go. Only people who may be on the fence if you're going to vote or if you're not going to vote, just like in 2016, which we had with Hillary and Trump. But I watched it, and I heard, unfortunately, yet again, more excuses from the commander-in-chief, leader of the free world. When addressing how he handled the pandemic, it was still him pointing to, China is the blame, pointing to the fact that he did, the travel ban, pointing to the fact that ventilators were producing. He keeps saying we're producing around the world. I don't know what he's talking about with that. He even took a couple of stretches and said, well, it's kind of an inflection to say it's not that bad because the models predicted we'd have a high death count. And even said he was been congratulated by other world leaders. And I don't know, Devin. I don't know how you can be a world leader and congratulate this president with how he's handled the coronavirus. I mean, I don't. If you're somebody calling our president, you're congratulating him. Please stop. That's not something we need right now for America, Devin. We need somebody calling him, telling him he needs to change his act. But they did actually said they did actually have good behavior. So at least we were able to kind of hear them go back and forth on some of the issues like healthcare, and of course they went over the crime bill and different things like that. But Devin, I think going back to your statement, nobody changed their mind. It was just, some entertainment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean that's all it was. There were some interesting moments. Of course, coronavirus was top of mind, and they really talked about that more than anything at this debate. Coronavirus and healthcare, they spent a lot of time on. And Trump said he would take responsibility for the pandemic, and then in the next breath he said he blamed it was China's fault for it even getting here in the first place. And then Joe Biden, of course, hammered home the message of just Donald Trump has just done a terrible job of protecting people from this virus. And yeah, in an interesting thing I thought was Trump has always said, hey, we're learning to live with it. We're learning to live with it. Joe Biden actually came back with an interesting saying we're learning to die with it, which is powerful because there are a lot of people still dying from this virus. So I think that shows the difference. There's a very stark choice. And what we have on November 3rd, we have Donald Trump, who is trying to get things open. He wants kids to go back to school, wants businesses to open, not necessarily worried about being safe. And then you have Joe Biden here who is saying, I'm going to listen to the scientists, and if we just wear the mask, we can save over 100,000 people before the end of the year. But again, there's a very stark choice. Even on healthcare, they spend a lot of time talking about this, and what we learned is that Donald Trump and the Republicans still don't have a healthcare bill. 4 years, I mean, you could say 10 years at this point. The Republicans have had the Senate or the House at some point. They've got the White. They had all three levels when Trump got into office, and we still do not have a healthcare plan from the Republican Party and Donald Trump. I mean, I think Trump even said during the debate it was going to be a big, beautiful healthcare plan, but he didn't give any specifics. That was it.
That was as specific as he could come up with. That been big and beautiful.
After 4 years in office, that's all we get is a big, beautiful healthcare plan. And Joe Biden, of course, is committed to improving the Affordable Care Act. And what he really wants to do is put add a public option to the Affordable Care Act, which would allow people who who are in states that didn't expand Medicaid. They can now apply for this public option and have health insurance. So that was a really good exchange because you really saw the differences. I mean, Donald Trump they don't care about the whole healthcare question. It's a losing topic for them. That's how they lost the House in 2018 because of the fact that the Republican Party is just not interested in coming up with a plan. But Adrian, again, there was some moments, but Donald Trump let us and the world know that he thinks he's the least racist person in the room, and I find this weird too. He keeps trying to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln. I'm not sure who told him that was a good idea or where that's coming from, but it's just a weird comparison. It's just weird whenever he talks about it, trying to compare himself to Abraham Lincoln.
It's just, I guess, Devin, it just displays a person with a lower IQ than what he would admit to have. Because when you talk about, yeah, you can compare yourself to Abe Lincoln if you'd like to, but there have been a number of presidents who have done a lot, to help, Black America. I mean, you look at Ulysses S. Grant, created the Justice Department and actually started to prosecute the KKK. You got FDR, started to push for repealing the poll tax to allow our people to start voting. Harry S. Truman segregated the military. Lyndon B. Johnson, Voting Civil Rights Act. Barack Obama, even looking at the Affordable Care Act and how it's really helped to reduce racial disparities in healthcare. And you've got a lot of different presidents who've done stuff for our communities. And when you look a little bit further into what he always touts about, because he's always tweeting about, First Step Act and prison reform. But when you look into some further reports on how, looking at Vox, they were looking at AG Barr's work to actually deny people this access and to try to, basically kind of backtrack on it. And they don't really allude, Devin, to the fact that this First Step Act was something formed with years of congressional debate. And that's one of the things I always highlight whenever I talk to people about the president. The president generally presides over a lot of things and has to sign things in the office. That doesn't mean that he has a lot of actions into their inception, lobbying the votes in Congress. He just signed it. When you look at the Black unemployment rate, Devin, he's always talking about Black unemployment, and that's good because we need that. We need our Black people working. But that was a trend that started with President Barack Obama. That wasn't something that, Donald Trump was elected and all of a sudden Black people got hired all over the country. No, that was a trend. And whenever you look at some fact checking from the Associated Press, you would see that the annual household median income for Black people was actually higher before Donald Trump took office. And whenever you look at unemployment only, it's not really affecting the other areas of racial disparities. Even when you talk about stuff with HBCUs, which he's been talking about, one of the things that people maybe not remembered from civics lessons in government, Congress controls the purse. I mean, Congress appropriates money and appropriates spending. The president, yes, he can kind of do some executive orders and do some things, but in fact, President Barack Obama's administration was the one that put forth the 7-year plan to invest in HBCUs, and President Trump simply just renewed it. So again, it's important to fact check this guy, Devin. I think it's been documented over, 30,000 lies since he's been in office. And just like I'll continue to say, we don't need a president who does that kind of stuff. You can feel how you want to about it, but it's important, Black America to understand, whenever Donald Trump says, what the hell do you have to lose? There's a lot of things that we have to lose. There's a lot of things at stake here with this election. And whenever you have someone who touts so much success out of Black America, Devin, and the claims don't actually add up to what he's doing. So I just definitely wanted to make sure to highlight that, because those were, I think that was an interesting moment for someone who clearly is very racist, because he's, tried to stop white supremacy, with the FBI putting that out, trying to say I'm the least racist in the room. That doesn't even make sense. So, there you go, Dad. I just need to fact check that a little bit.
No, that's great. I mean, that is what is needed with this particular president, because every other phrase or sentence is a lie, and he says it with ease, and it's almost kind of scary with the ease at which he just will say something that's just completely and utterly false. But that's good to hear, because he does position himself as somehow the savior of Black people by saying he's done the most than anyone else. He's done some things, that is true. He's also inflamed racial tensions in the country, and made things worse than what they were when he took office. So it's a double-sided sword there. And the last thing about the debate here, of course, Trump hit Biden again. They've done this consistently about that 94 crime bill that Joe Biden was behind. And they also hit Joe Biden about fracking and about ending fracking. About the crime bill, it was a pretty direct, challenge from Donald Trump to Joe Biden about it, and saying, and really talking about the impact and the damage it really did to the Black community and leading to mass incarceration. And Joe Biden, I would have liked a better answer. He said it quickly. It was a mistake, and then he went on to say, he wants to give states money to end mandatory minimum sentences, give them money to use drug courts instead of sending people to jail, and sending, giving states some money to send folks to rehab instead of jail. I would have liked a more full-throated look. I'm sorry, it was a mistake. These were not the consequences that we intended for this to happen. But it just seemed like he was trying to bypass it pretty quickly. And so he just like, it was a mistake, and then I want to do this. No, really, I think some people really just want to hear him acknowledge that there was a problem, and that this bill did lead to mass incarceration of a lot of Black men. A lot of young Black men were locked up because of policies like the 94 crime bill. And so he really needs to do some work to win back some of that Black male support that Donald Trump is digging into, honestly. He's got a pretty good amount of support between Black and Latino men. So I would have liked to have seen a better answer to that. But also, Biden said during the debate that we're going to transition away from oil. And so, of course, Donald Trump hopped on that immediately, saying that Joe Biden was going to lose Texas and Pennsylvania because of that decision to say that. I mean, I get what he's trying to do. He's trying to thread the needle and say we're not going to ban fracking, but we're going to transition away from it. But at some point, it means in the future, oil is not going to be a part of powering our cities and our cars and things like that. So it was definitely a headline and something that was talked about. Joe Biden wants to end oil or get rid of fracking. I don't know how much it really matters at this point, with it being so close to the election and so many people have already voted, and the coronavirus cases are spiking, and we're going to talk about that here in a second. But as far as that 94 crime bill, and just to give some context to what was going on back then, because this is important, Joe Biden was not the only senator who voted for this bill. There were a total of 95 senators who actually voted for the bill, both Democrats and Republicans, and 235 in the House and 188 being Democrats. So this was not just a one-man band of Joe Biden championing the 94 crime bill. This was a congressional effort to do something about high crime rates. And yes, it was definitely a mistake, no doubt about it. But we need to hold other folks besides Joe Biden accountable for the votes that they made back in '94 and with the damage that happened, to the black community. So Adrian, overall, like I say, it was a good debate. Finally, it was decent, more normal. But I don't know if it's going to change a lot of minds with it being so close to election day, and millions of people have already voted early. I think Joe Biden did what he needed to do. Donald Trump had some good moments, but I think Joe Biden came out, unscathed, and you're probably still feeling pretty confident.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's definitely going to need to clear up, his stance with oil. I think all he needed to do is just say, Devin, we're in 2020. California's burning. We got flooding, we got hurricanes, we got crops not yielding like they used to. We've got to do something, America, to address climate change, and it starts with transitioning away from fossil fuels. We want to make sure you don't have to pay, $4 a gallon for gas. Maybe you could have an electric vehicle. I think that if Joe Biden and the Democrats would start to paint their messaging more towards that, they can see more results. Because at the end of the day, I think we all want a country that's environmentally friendly, where we can all drink clean water, breathe clean air, and things like that. So yeah, nobody's mind will change, but hey, at least it was something to watch. At least it was something where we could get a chance to see the candidates one more time before we go and make our final decision. But what we're going to do, viewers, we're going to take our first little break here. And when we come back, we're going to get into talking a little bit about some of the coronavirus and to go over some of the numbers. So sit back and listen well.
All right, welcome back. So, like Adrian mentioned before the break, we're going to get into a little bit of the coronavirus pandemic. It is still here with us, and so this week the country actually set a record. We are seeing a surge of COVID-19 in the country, and we hit a single day record of more than 85,000 cases on Friday, which is really setting up for a really kind of a nightmare on November 3rd, with millions of people going out to vote at polling locations across the country. And simultaneously, we're having a pretty large surge of COVID-19 cases. And to add more to that, 15 states have added more cases in the past week than in any other 7-day stretch of the pandemic. So it's pretty obvious that this thing is getting worse right now. North Dakota, at first didn't have a bad outbreak, but right now they lead the nation in new cases per capita. And so, what we are seeing is this thing is getting pretty bad. I mean, we got hospitalizations that have increased for all age groups, but even more so for 50 and over. 50 plus year olds are getting impacted by this as well. And so, we have Wisconsin is having to open a field hospital. And so, again, and this is why this was talked about at the debate. You saw the choice that we have with how to handle this. Trump is not a fan of masks. Masks have been proven to slow the spread at points of this virus. But we just wanted to give you an idea to make sure that when you go out on November 3rd or to early vote, make sure you're wearing your mask, you're social distancing, you're washing your hands, because this is not going to magically go away. We have to stay vigilant and do the things to protect ourselves from this virus. So, Adrian, just to
and what I was
yeah.
going to say, Devin, before we go off the topic of coronavirus, I was going to say, viewers, if you need a little extra, motivation on, how to get through the pandemic, just go to the numbers. You got over, 8.5 million people infected, and then even more so, you got over 220,000 Americans dead. So I always tell people, if you need a little bit of extra, inspiration, to mask up, wash your hands, carry some hand sanitizer, not meet in large gatherings. Just remember those 220,000, Americans who lost their lives and those families that, are being affected by it.
Definitely. I mean, it's a very real threat. So make sure you're taking the proper steps when you go out to anywhere, particularly when you're going out to vote and everything. So our next story is going to be about surrounding the campaigns and what's happening. But there was an interesting story that came out about the Trump campaign and what it's spending its money on. But and so right now, if you look at it, the campaign has raised a total of about $1 billion over that, but they've actually blown through $1 billion, and their grassroots funding has also slowed. But after the debate, interestingly enough, I think they had their best online fundraising day ever after the debate. So at least people were liking his performance. But just to give you an idea of what their money is going to, the Trump campaign actually spent $10 million on a Super Bowl ad before they even had a challenger. Like the Democratic primary was going on, so it wasn't clear who he was going to run against. We figured Joe Biden, but they still bought a $10 million ad during the Super Bowl, and then it looks like they have hid more than $350 million in spending from disclosure through a web of LLCs. So there's a lot of money moving around to different places, and it's not entirely clear where it's going, what it's being spent on. But it looks like they also spent a lot of money on overhead, unnecessary overhead, as they say. And just, some people say they're living the lifestyles of the rich and famous using campaign money. Other things by the Trump and RNC included $100,000 spent on copies of Don Jr.'s book that was called Triggered. And so essentially what they did was they bought his book, and propelled it up to the top of the New York Times bestsellers list, even though real Americans weren't buying it. It was the Trump campaign that's buying this book. So, Adrian, this rubs me the wrong way, because if you're a regular person around the country who gave money to the Trump campaign, you kind of might feel a little bit burned by the fact that they are spending money on things that have nothing to do with the presidential campaign.
Yeah, I mean, you got, Devin, looks like $7.4 million spent on Trump branded properties. You got $35.9 million spent on Trump merchandise. You got $39 million spent in legal and compliance fees. Another $15.1 million spent on the RNC convention because they decided to move it. I mean, you just got a lot of just unnecessary spending. And I get it. I mean, I guess as the candidate and as the party, you can do what you want to with the money. But what Devin said, viewers, that's important because it's not their money; it's your money. I mean, I didn't donate to the campaign or anything, but it's the American people's money who fund a lot of this. I know they get a lot of big donors and super PACs, but there are a lot of, just like Devin said, everyday people who are just struggling to make ends meet and decided they like Donald Trump, enough that they'll give $15, $20 instead of paying their phone bill this week or whatever. And then just to see the travesty of the campaign and the entire party, for that matter, to just squander the money. Because now, I mean, the articles and the headlines around the story is that they burned through it. I mean, it's just insane, Devin. But hey, not to beat up on Trump too much, but just wanted to give people a little bit of reflection, because I think that shows a little bit more of character, as if he hasn't shown enough of it already. But on to some more election news. So, my state, Devin, California has just been chaotic right now. I thought that California was a little more rational and reasonable and stuff like that. But I mean, you got I think we gave this story maybe last week or a couple of weeks back, where we were talking about the Republican Party putting up those illegal ballot boxes, and then saying that they were going to keep doing it, but then the courts got involved, and they said, no, we're not going to do that. And I'm just like, like, why would anybody think that that's justifiable? We already have a system of elections. We already have a way of how you can drop off your ballot, either by mail. We have voting centers. We have safe and secure drop boxes. Why would you go and put up unauthorized, unofficial, unstaffed, unsecured drop boxes? Devin, I mean, come on. Why would you do that? Why? I don't understand why the Republican Party, other than the fact that they know that they're losing power, I don't understand how they're so obvious to be participating in voter suppression, Devin. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, yeah, I mean, you have to look at it, like you say, through the prism of, they know that they're going to lose. They have a good chance of losing this election, and they have a good chance of losing a lot of seats around the country, particularly in the House and the Senate. So it's a desperate attempt. It's a desperation attempt to confuse voters and put out these unofficial ballot boxes, because there's no other reason you would do that unless you felt that there was a possibility that you might lose, and so you're playing all the dirty tricks that you can to stay in power. And so it's not going to work, but it lets you know, to me, they seem to be the party that is against having everybody participate in voting, in the democracy, and making sure that everybody's voices are heard. I don't understand this at all, but staying in your state of your state of California, there was actually a ballot drop box that was set on fire in California, and this happened on Sunday night. It looks like it was a ballot box. It was only one ballot box, but it was in a majority Latino town in California. Was set on fire on Friday night, and it may have actually destroyed up to 100 ballots. They don't know for sure, but the fire took place in a place called Baldwin Park, which is a suburb near Los Angeles, and it took the firefighters almost 2 hours to get a handle on this fire, because they had to break into this ballot box. And of course, this is not just some willy-nilly box. I mean, this thing is fortified, and they had to break into it and put the fire out. But they're not quite sure who set it. But Adrian, it's really disheartening to hear stuff like this. Again, I guess you could say it's more of a sign of desperation. I don't know who said it, but I don't know what other reason you would said it, other than you're afraid of these people voting and making their voices heard, and you might be on the bad end of losing power. And so hopefully we don't see this as a trend, going around setting fire to ballot boxes. But it just lets you know that the atmosphere right now it's got a lot of tension in it, and people are worried about this election. They're believing the president when he says voter fraud, that mail-in ballots are full of fraud, and somebody apparently took it upon themselves to go try to destroy some ballots. For what reason, I don't know.
I don't know. Other than the silence of vote, you mean Baldwin Park is about I think three-quarters Latino population or so. So it's clear that whoever did it did not want those people to vote. And I don't know if the Latino population of California is more Biden friendly or Trump friendly. I'm not sure, but regardless of whether or not it's more friendly towards one candidate, everybody has a right to vote, Devin. So, I mean, I hope that this isn't a trend. You know, I think I even saw some reports over the weekend about people armed, kind of outside on the outskirts of polling locations. And I'm just like, that just seemed like more intimidation there. We did see that Joe Biden, he just keeps getting more and more endorsements from unlikely people. And that just kind of shows you more and more of kind of where America is starting to, lend itself towards. I mean, you've got Billy Graham's granddaughter who says she's going to vote for Joe Biden. And one of the things that's very striking out of that is, obviously the whole issue of abortion. That always, strikes the evangelical church the hardest when it comes to the Democratic Party. But what she noted was that being pro-life, I mean, yeah, we would love to see that. And she actually said we would love to see the Democrats, look at, more things like adoption and foster care versus abortion. But she said that you got to look beyond, the womb and start looking at life, looking at poverty, homelessness, education, healthcare. Because if you're going to be pro-life in the womb, you got to be pro-life when that person is actually born, all the way up into death. So that was a really interesting thing that I saw. And not to mention that, Michael Steele, who's a former RNC chairperson, he put out an ad for Joe Biden, saying that, he's basically saying, I want to get back to where we can discuss things as Americans. I don't want it to be a blue, red, black, white, Democrat, Republican. I just want to come back to the table and be able to have normal conversations, which Mike Steele is actually the second Republican national chairperson who's actually endorsed Biden. Looks like Mark Riccott, which hopefully I pronounced that correct, of Montana, has also endorsed Biden. So Devin, he's got some pretty interesting endorsements. I mean, from former RNC chairpersons to people who used to serve in national security. I mean, military generals. He's getting some heavy hitters. So I'm hoping that, maybe within the last, 2 weeks leading up to the election, that maybe these new endorsements kind of get him over the ticket.
Yeah, I think what you see is a full referendum on Donald Trump. I mean, that's what this election is all about. Democrats, Republicans, Independents, doesn't matter. Everybody has pretty much been in, at least a lot of people, most people have been in agreement that Donald Trump needs to go. He's crossed the line and has divided the country to a point where Republicans are just like, we can't take this, regardless of if we lose power. He is doing irreparable damage to the country, to the conscience of the country, and things that we're going to have to deal with long after Donald Trump is out of office. We're going to have to be the ones to repair this. And so what you see is folks are just saying enough is enough, and we need, you don't have to like Joe Biden's policies, but that as a person, he approaches things very differently. He doesn't turn the temperature up. He might he turns it down. And so that's what people want. They want to be able to sleep at night knowing that their president is not tweeting at all hours of the night, trying to make policy on Twitter and make policy announcements. It's, that's not what we've come to expect from our presidents, and people just aren't going to put up with it with Donald Trump. And so they're turning and leaving the party to go vote for Joe Biden. And in some other election news, another, I guess you could say Republican or independent, Mike Bloomberg is using his massive war chest to help Joe Biden in Florida to the tune of $100 million. So he's all eyes on Florida. He's directing $100 million for Joe Biden's campaign in Florida, and then they're trying to create a massive advertising and ground game to make Trump play defense. And Trump is actually in Florida today. He voted in person, and also he has a couple rallies. So everybody knows how important Florida is, but it is definitely interesting to see how Mike Bloomberg's money and support is going to help Donald Trump maybe get across the finish line, because if he wins Florida, we might be talking about a Joe Biden presidency on election night. They might be able to call the election. So we'll see. Just like with Pennsylvania, Trump is on defense. Trump is having to defend a lot of territory. Michigan, Wisconsin, Pennsylvania, Florida, North Carolina. He's defending a lot of states. And so with Mike Bloomberg focusing on Florida and the Trump campaign not necessarily rolling in money, this could be something to watch out for later on. And Adrian, we also saw former President Obama finally get on the campaign trail, going out and campaigning for Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. And so we were wondering when he was going to make his appearance. He looks like he did. And he to me, I saw parts of his speech in Philadelphia. It was pretty strong rebuke of Donald Trump for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was it's really good. I liked it. And I mean, and one thing I will say, viewers, I think at first I wanted to kind of be as unbiased with the presidential election, with bringing the news and spinning it and things of that nature. But one of the things was very clear to me when the FBI came out with the report that domestic terrorism, white supremacy is an issue, and we're trying to fight it. And Donald Trump, buried that. That was my clearest indication as I needed. I was already not going to vote for him, but that was clear enough to me. So I wanted to kind of throw that disclaimer because I know that it can be, some people can see us as, Biden supporters, and I'm not, too gung-ho about him. But, in lieu of all of the things he said and his plans, in looking at Donald Trump and in looking at our mission with the Black Agenda, which is really good about educating people of the issues that are affecting our communities. We're going to try to be as unbiased as possible, but we had to make sure that we show people the facts because this president, whoever it is, Biden or Trump, it's going to affect our communities greatly. We're at a very pivotal moment where we have a lot of momentum to get things done, and if we don't have the right person at the helm to get things done, we'll lose out on an opportunity to really bring change in our community. So before we move on too far, I want to make sure to get a little disclaimer on that. But yeah, Devin, former President Obama, man, I just, and it's not that he's black or anything like that. It's just he's cool. He's casual. He's collective. He's professional. He's got a little bit of humor. He's just one of America's favorite presidents. I just, some people would say, well, it's just maybe because he's America's black president. It has nothing to do with the color of his skin, but the way he carries himself. When you contrast, Barack Obama to even Joe Biden, and especially to Donald Trump, it's like, I don't know, going from the moon to going to the sun or something. It's just night and day. One of my favorite moments from former president was whenever he was talking about Donald Trump's secret Chinese bank account, and where it was like, if Fox News would have heard about that, I would have been called Beijing Barry. I thought that was just, that took the cake there. But
that's a classic.
Yeah, Devin, I think all of this is just making Donald Trump do more. He's gotta. If you're gonna be the president of the United States, you gotta do something. You can't just hold the title. Going back to what you were talking about in Pennsylvania, he was talking in Erie during this little rally, and basically told him I wasn't gonna come here, Erie. If it had not been for the pandemic, I wasn't even gonna do any work. Is basically what he was saying. He was basically saying, I don't need to come here, but now that I'm down in the polls, I need you to vote for me. Come on, Devin. What guy goes to a crowd and says, I don't even really want to come and talk to you, but I need your vote, so here we are. What sense does that make?
Exactly. Obama has a way of speaking that a lot of people will listen to, and I think he's Joe Biden's obvious most powerful surrogate. That he has. And so that's something, I don't know how much it'll help. He will certainly be able to get folks excited, but there's so few undecideds this election. It's really just about rallying that Democratic base and getting that, parts of that Obama coalition that voted for Trump, getting them back on Joe Biden's camp and getting them out to vote. But I do agree, too, some of the things that Donald Trump is doing, all of the things that Donald Trump is doing, Obama could not have done half of what he's done. the bar for what we expected for president was essentially set on the floor for Donald Trump, and he just stepped over it. And people give him praise for that. Obama had to reach the highest of highs. He couldn't wear tan-colored suits, and he couldn't speak a certain way and act a certain way, or they criticized the mess out of him. And so I think you see him, letting loose a little bit and talking about the hypocrisy that we're witnessing with, like you say, the Fox Newses of the world, who try to call him the latte president because he saluted the soldier with a latte in his hand. I mean, they criticize him for the smallest of things. But Trump can go and say, I'm almost like Abraham Lincoln, and we're okay with it.
Trump can call our military veterans suckers and losers.
Yeah, that's okay.
And nothing's done about that.
That shows you just how far to the extremes the country has gone, to where we can't even have a objective conversation about Donald Trump and what he's done. So, I hope, folks see that the choice you have on November 3rd. We don't want to tell you who to vote for, but just look at the policies and look. You have a very distinct choice that you can make on who you're going to vote for. So, just to end this segment, we do want to talk about, this was talked about during the debate, some immigration news here, but the family separation policy of the Trump administration has resulted now in over 500 migrant children who have been separated from their parents, and we can't find and reunite them with their parents. The Trump administration is currently looking for their parents, and we are responsible now for over 500 migrant children. And they can't find their parents, and they believe about 25 of them may have actually been reunited, but a group called Justice in Motion is physically searching for the parents of these children in Mexico and Central America. Adrian, they talked about this during the debate, and Joe Biden said it. This was totally ethically and morally wrong. What we decided to do by taking the children of parents away. And now you see the result is we have essentially 500 orphan children that we are responsible for as a country, all because the Trump administration wanted to, scare people from trying to cross the border illegally.
I mean, you think about that, Devin, the trauma that can be placed on a child who's been separated from I mean, I've never been lost like that before, so I don't know, but I can only imagine the trauma that's on those kids right now. I mean, that's just, I get that, Trump was like, we should have, great, borders. I get that you want to make sure that people who come into our country do it legally. But, I mean, these are kids. I mean, his defense was, well, they came over with coyotes and gangs and all these other things. I'm just like, but these are kids. I mean, at the end of the day, these are kids. Just like when you look at Dreamers in DACA, whose parents crossed over and brought them here, without them, okaying it. I mean, these are kids. I mean, you can't, I don't care how, how you try to defend it. He'll say one thing and he'll say that, I think he tried to say, well, we're taking care of them or whatever. But
yes, he said they were very well taken care of.
Say again?
No, I was saying Trump said they were very well taken care of in response to the fact that we couldn't find their parents.
And I think, Devin, we've already seen the pictures, and we've seen the cages, and we've seen, the kids who have, like aluminum blankets or something like that. I mean, they may or may not get soaked. We've seen all of that. So I don't know where he's coming from on that issue.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a total lack of empathy, honestly, from Donald Trump. I would think that he could at least fake being able to empathize with what's going on with these children. But he couldn't even do that. He just went to, well, they're being taken care of, so it's all right. I mean, not necessarily all right, but he could have said, we're sorry for what's happening to these children. We're going to try to find their parents. It's a terrible situation, but no, they're very well taken care of. And that's something that lets you know what Donald Trump is all about, essentially. So we're going to take another break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about some news about the Boogaloo Boys and Judge Amy Coney Barrett. And so stick with us. We'll be right back. All right, welcome back. So we're going to get back into the show here, and we're going to talk about some news that came out this week about a group called the Boogaloo Boys. With they had a member, a possible alleged member here, who was charged in Texas. He's a Texas man who was charged with rioting in connection to the Minneapolis protest for George Floyd. Now, authorities are saying his name is Ivan Harrison Hunter. He's a 26-year-old man from Texas, who they say shot 13 rounds into the Minneapolis Police Department's 3rd precinct. And this happened on May 28th. And they said he shot at the precinct with an AK-47 style semi-automatic. And he is being charged with 1 count of participating in a riot. And he made an appearance in front of the judge on Thursday. To kind of break it down here, to set the scene a little bit. Now, what they're saying is that Hunter was actually caught on video high-fiving another man, yelling, justice for George Floyd. And that Hunter was actually wearing a distinctive skull face mask from the riot that they also found on his Facebook page. So he kind of told on himself. Hunter also made some comments about committing violence in Minneapolis on his Facebook page as well. And really the death knell to this story and how they really caught him was apparently he is affiliated with a gentleman named Stephen Carrillo, who is a member of the Boogaloo Boys, which is a far-right, you call it far-right, anti-government, is an extremist group. And Carrillo had been charged back in May with the killing of a Federal Protective Service officer in Oakland. And so the FBI or Minneapolis police actually sent in an undercover informant, and they were able to confirm that Ivan Hunter had an affiliation with this Stephen Carrillo, and even Hunter admitted to helping set the fire that burned down the precinct, and he also admitted to shooting at the Minneapolis precinct. So, Adrian, when these protests and these riots were happening over the summer, you saw both Democrats and Republicans blaming each side for what was happening. But it was pretty obvious then. We were getting slow reports. People were blaming outside actors and outside agitators, because we know over the past years when we've had Black Lives Matter protests, they have not been violent like we saw over the summer. So you knew something was off. There was another element to this. And so to me, reading this story, Adrian, it seems like this is proof that what we were witnessing over the summer, and even in Kenosha, there were some bad actors, particularly from the far right, out there instigating a lot of the violence that we were witnessing. And this guy, he helped set the fire to the police department and shot at it. I mean, they were blaming Black Lives Matter people, but you have folks like Ivan Hunter out there who don't like Black Lives Matter out there inciting violence to make them look bad.
No, you're absolutely right. I think it's one of those things where you have, people just who go off and use the name of Black Lives Matter for a rally, and then violence just erupts, and then Black Lives Matter gets pinned for all of the heat. And again, it's just one of those things where we've got so much going on in our country that we've got to realize that domestic terrorism is an issue. Just like climate change is a very pressing. And I don't think there's been a lot of attention given to her nomination, obviously, because of the heat between the Dems and the Republicans. But I always try to advocate for people to pay attention to the judicial branch, pay attention to the Supreme Court, because there's a lot of decisions that get worked that way. I mean, this presidential election might work its way up to the Supreme Court. So it's very important to pay attention to these things, viewers. You do have Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski from, I think, Alaska. She originally said she was not going to vote for the nominee because of the precedent and the heat, and all that kind of stuff. But I think yesterday or the day before, she came out and said, actually, I'm going to move forward and vote for Judge Barrett. So I don't know, Devin. I'm hoping that, like I said, people will wake up, smell the coffee, pay attention to whoever your judges are in the local area, state level, and federal levels, because they do have different impacts on what's going on. Um, one story, Devin, that I had found coming out of, I think, North Carolina.
Hmm.
There was a 19-year-old, looks like his name was Alexander Treaselman. Seems like he had staged a ban outside of a bank with an AR-15 and a box. Trump rhetoric, is instilling, all of these people who think that they can go and enact justice, or what they call justice upon whoever they
Right.
decide. But this was a crazy story, Devin.
I mean, it is. It's just a sign of the times. It's a sign of, the atmosphere that to me, Donald Trump's rhetoric and the way he talks has led to. He's created this environment where it's okay. He's created a permission structure for people who want to go out and commit violent acts in the name of protecting our country and protecting our cities from looters and rioters. You saw he was leading a chant of "lock her up" for the governor of Michigan. I mean, and this is like days or weeks after they just foiled a plot to kidnap her, and he's over here leading chants to lock her up. I mean, that's his MO. That's what he wants to do, is divide people and incite, these violent tendencies. And what you get is what you see in North Carolina and what you just saw with the Boogaloo Boys, a potential member of the Boogaloo Boys in Minneapolis. I mean, these folks have bad things on their mind, and the president is okay because he wants their vote. He does not care what is the collateral damage of reaching out and not condemning white supremacists. What it does is it makes the rest of us less safe. And so, not to plug our show, but I will plug the show. We have an episode upcoming with Douglas Jefferson from the National African American Gun Association, and we talked about this very thing about why you've seen a shift in African Americans' attitudes towards the Second Amendment and needing some kind of protection, some kind of firearm on hand in case someone tries to do something. And in this type of climate, you need to protect yourself all the time because you don't know what's on people's mind. People are crazy. There's a lot of misinformation floating around on Facebook. So people read things that aren't true and then can go out and commit acts behind bad information, and because the president refuses to condemn it. So, Adrian, did you have any last thoughts on this before we go into break?
No, Devin, I think that, this just shows that there's just a need for leadership at every level who has a vision for everybody. Not a vision that's based off of the Democratic platform or the Republican platform, but one that can just encompass all Americans. So that's, with that being said, I think that can be a good little segue into our final break before our quick hits.
Yep. All right, welcome back. So we're gonna end our show as we do always with some quick hits, which is news from around the country that we found that might be interesting to you. So Adrian's gonna start us off with our very first story.
All right, viewers, Pope Francis is making some waves here in 2020 as if there's not a lot of news and stuff going on. So Pope Francis announced during a documentary that premiered at the Rome Film Festival that he believed that gay couples are the children of God and do in fact deserve to have children. Pope Francis went on to say, what we have to create is a law of civil union. They have the right to be legally protected. I have defended that. And Devin, since becoming Pope in 2013, he's actually had a very welcoming attitude towards homosexuals and has said on several occasions, who am I to judge in regards to welcoming gay couples in the Vatican? So it's awesome to see someone who is a religious leader in a climate that's very partisan and we kind of divided. It's good to see a figurehead coming out and trying to say, hey, we just need to love one another.
Absolutely. That's the message that we need. We don't need to be dividing people based on who they love. We need to be welcoming everybody as much as we can. And so we'll move to some more international news. We'll go to the country of Nigeria, which is in turmoil right now, as thousands of Nigerians have been protesting state violence against civilians. Now, these demonstrations, you may have seen this hashtag going around on Twitter, Facebook, End SARS, I think is the hashtag that they're using. But what's happened here is that earlier this month, there were calls for Nigeria's government to shut down what they call the Special Anti-Robbery Squad, also known as SARS, SARS. And so this squad was actually launched to fight crime, but it actually carried out torture and killings, and this is according to Amnesty International. And so, of course, these killings that SARS was carrying out has enraged civilians like it would anywhere else, enraged Nigerians across the country who are now out protesting, calling on the government to end this. And to date, we got this yesterday. To date, at least 51 civilians have been killed during this unrest and in this protesting. And even Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari, I hope I didn't mess that up, he said on Friday that he, quote, blames hooliganism for the violence that they are seeing during these protests. And he claims that security forces have used what he called extreme restraint when dealing with these protests. I don't know how you use extreme restraint and still kill 51 people, but Nigeria is definitely in some turmoil. So if you see that hashtag, you see anything regarding SARS, make sure you share it and support the folks in Nigeria who are going through a really, really tough time right now.
Just, Devin, it just goes to show us here in America how quickly you can go from, having a country of democracy to, being, having a police or special forces out prosecuting people, which is kind of what our president, Donald Trump, is trying to create, where police and law enforcement go out using the military to prosecute people. So, again, viewers, that's a very interesting story. Definitely show your support there. To bring it back to home a little bit and to, I guess, transition the mood a little bit, looks like Jeffrey Toobin got suspended from the New Yorker after exposing himself during a Zoom work call. Looks like during the virtual work call, the group broke out into smaller groups to discuss election coverage, and looks like they were playing some role-playing games or so just to kind of get some acting going on. So it looks like Jeffrey was supposed to play the role of the court, but it looks like, I guess when he turned on his camera for his computer down to face his lap, gave everybody kind of a front row seat of the activities that he was doing, which weren't very courtly. So I don't know, Devin, I do a lot of Zoom calls and things like that. I always make sure that, if I'm going to have my camera on, I stage the room, make sure as you can see, there's nothing behind me.
Yeah.
Got the lights, and obviously I make sure it's on my face. So I guess if you are going to do some Zoom calls, just think ahead and do all your other stuff before your work call.
Yes, I mean, I'm surprised it's taken this long for something like this to happen with everybody working from home now and on Zoom calls, you figure at some point something like this would happen. So very embarrassing, I'm pretty sure for Mr. Tubin there. But into other news, some sports news here. Former Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver Antonio Brown is back in the NFL after serving an 8-game suspension from the NFL. Now, he has agreed to a 1-year contract with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he will reunite with quarterback Tom Brady, who he played with briefly last year for like a game or two before Antonio Brown was eventually suspended. And so while his contract is still being finalized and he still has to clear the COVID-19 protocols, Antonio Brown is expected to be at least available for Tampa Bay's Week 9 matchup against the New Orleans Saints. So AB is back in the league for those who keep up with the sports world. So we'll see. He still has some legal stuff on the side that may, come to the surface and cause him to miss some time again. So he has some open cases with, I think, a trainer or somebody who was at his home. Those things are still being worked out legally, but he has served his suspension and he is back in the league.
Yeah, that's just goes to show nobody's nobody's immune to this thing going on. Even though we want to get back to normal and start playing ball again, we gotta make sure we keep being safe. Now, Deb, this was a story that was really interesting about McDonald's.
Yeah.
I think everybody who's ever gone to McDonald's knows that the chain, I don't care where you are, if you're in California and if you're in Mississippi, because I love them both, it seems like their ice cream machines are just notorious for not working. And it's just always at the moment where they should be. Hot days, at 7 o'clock at night, 2 in the morning, doesn't matter. It just seems like they never have ice cream. So apparently there was a software engineer that got tired of this, and he tweeted something saying, placing an order worth about $19,000 every minute at every McDonald's in the U.S. to figure out which locations has broken ice cream machines. So to get into that, it looks like there's a 24-year-old Rashid Zahid. Sorry if Rashid maybe is how you pronounce his name. Did some reverse engineering and basically developed what he calls McBroken. And basically, Devin and I guess viewers, how McBroken works, it's basically a bot that actually sends orders to every location of McDonald's in the United States and tries to place an order for an ice cream sundae. And basically, if the bot, is able to successfully place the order, that location gets a green dot. And if the bot is unsuccessful, it gets a red dot. So I don't know, Deb. I haven't looked into it. I haven't been eating McDonald's ice cream very much lately because they have some better stuff. But I'm gonna have to look and try this McBroken out just to see if it works. Because it definitely made the people from McDonald's stand up. Cause I saw where somebody tweeted, we thank him for doing this. They actually created a task force to kind of get to the bottom of the broken ice cream machine. So, Devin, I guess if we're smart enough, maybe this is the way to create change with capitalism. Just go and point out some inefficiencies.
I think that's the way to go. I love the name McBroken. That is spot on because, like you say, everybody around the country has at some point tried to go to McDonald's or even like a Sonic or anywhere else and try to get ice cream, and they claim their machine is broken. So this is first world problems, and people are trying to fix them here using McBroken. So if you want to find it, we got this article from Thrillist.com if you want to go and read that. So our last story here, kind of a funny story as well, but there was a man who has actually had to have surgery to remove a toothbrush from his stomach. So doctors had to remove a 19 centimeter long toothbrush within 24 hours, fearing that if they left it in there any longer, it actually could have been fatal. Now, this is a 39-year-old who has his name has been withheld, so probably HIPAA violations there. But he claims he was brushing his teeth on September 15th when it slipped, and he had to be rushed to a nearby health clinic, which quickly referred him to a hospital. And an X-ray and further tests couldn't locate the brush in the man's throat, and they actually had to look down in his stomach, and there they found the toothbrush that slipped down his throat. And so they had to perform a minor operation a little time later and remove the toothbrush. So, Adrian, whenever you go to brush your teeth, make sure you hold on tightly to it so it doesn't somehow magically slip down your throat and kill you and end up in your stomach.
I figured Devin maybe he had one of those electric toothbrushes and it just got the moving too fast. And just, I don't know. I've never brushed my teeth in a moment where the toothbrush even remotely gone back too far. I mean, your teeth are in the front of your mouth. I guess maybe he was brushing his tongue and he got back there too far. Maybe that was the thing. I mean, I do that, but I know how far back to go, I guess.
Maybe. I mean, I can imagine maybe if you were, like you say, brushing your tongue and then you went too far and maybe he started choking, so he just decided to swallow it, and then it just ended up in his stomach.
The crazy thing was he actually was able to rush himself to the health clinic.
Yeah,
I mean,
so he's okay.
Like, the ambulance was calling. He was the one that rushed himself to the health clinic and got referred. So I don't know how you had a toothbrush. I guess his throat must be wide open, and it just went quickly down to his stomach because it seemed like he wasn't choking at all.
No, you could not have. That is bizarre. That is a bizarre story. So out there, for people who are watching, make sure you hang on to your toothbrush when you're brushing your teeth. Don't go too far back there. It might end up in your stomach and can be fatal. So make sure you remember that. If you swallow a toothbrush, it could be fatal.
So not a lasting moment, sorry, but it could be fatal. Sure.
It could be fatal at the end of the day. So that's it for our show. As always, we had a ton of news today. We started a little bit later, but we're dealing with some technical difficulties on our side, so we apologize for starting a little later. But of course, we'll be back with you as always next Saturday at 4:00, bringing you all the news from this week. We have some good episodes coming up. We just dropped an episode on affirmative action when it comes to college admissions. So if you haven't listened to that, go listen to it. It's very, very good. We released an episode on the Second Amendment, and then we'll have another one coming up with, I think it's the Vice President. I might have got that wrong, Adrian.
National Vice President.
National Vice President.
National African American Gun Association.
Yeah. So his name is Douglas Jefferson. We talked to him for a good while. Had an amazing conversation about the Second Amendment, guns, and how African Americans view that. And so really good. That'll be coming up hopefully this week. We'll have another podcast episode with the executive director of the Mississippi NAACP, and then also the executive director of One Hope, which is also in Mississippi. Talking to them about some things that they're doing, gearing up for the election, and some events that they're hosting that are going to be virtual, where you can actually check in and participate and watch and learn about some of the issues that they're trying to tackle. So Adrian, of course, we need money, so let them know where they can donate to us and find us on social.
Yeah, Devin, you're absolutely right. We'd love to be able to do this, bring you the news, bring you podcasts, but in order for us to do more, it does require a little bit of resources to do that. But yeah, we've got our host, rather. You can go to patron.podbean/Black Agenda Pod. Again, that's patron, which is patron.podbean/Black Agenda Pod. You can donate. We've actually got a lot of gifts in there where you can even be on our show. You can submit requests as far as like topics. You can even advertise with us and things of that nature. So definitely do that. We'd love to have more likes, share it, and follow us. So don't forget Facebook, Instagram, Twitter @Black Agenda Pod. You can find us on all of those. We'd love to hear your thoughts over how we're doing, over what you'd like to see us doing. And even though we're reaching out to our home state of Mississippi, if you're in a different state and you'd like us to reach out to maybe your NAACP, maybe you have an organization like One Voice who's trying to champion different issues in your state, we'd love to be able to talk to your different leaders, send us some recommendations, let us know what topics you want, and we'd love to just be able to provide you some content that actually makes you all take the move so that on your weekends you'll be tuning into the Black Agenda at Saturday. So, Devin, that's all I wanted to say. I don't know if you've got any last thoughts, but I'm going to leave it over to you.
No, that's pretty much a wrap for this one. Again, you can find us at Black Agenda Pod, Facebook, Twitter, IG. Follow us, like us, share our stuff. We're just trying to make some things happen and get some conversations started. And as always, we'll catch you guys next time. Thank y'all for watching.